Hello, nerds for Yang.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Now with this campaign, bang, dang, is and true. Come roll with the Yang Gang.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Heidi, Briones, the original lesbian for Yang, back in the nerd zone. How are you doing?
Doing well, Tom. It's great to see you. I know that you've been, in a move and a transition, so I'm excited to chat with you now.
Yeah, man. I'm 1 day away from the end of my official quarantine, and can't wait to. I don't know if it will change. There's not much going on out there, but it'll be nice to be able to at least like have a coffee with a friend and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Life's weird now. Life's a lot different than when we last chatted. Yes.
But luckily I did, as I was mentioning to you, I do have access to really good fish tacos and steak burritos. So life could be worse on the West Coast, I can't complain.
That's excellent. Yeah, I mean, California has a lot better Mexican food than Oregon, so I'm still jealous. I mean, yeah, it's not like Portland is not a mecca of Mexican food. I mean, there's maybe a couple good ones, but it's nothing like what you can get in the Bay Area.
Yeah, although I guess if you drove east of Portland, it would get even more distant from kind of authentic.
I mean, to me, the further you get away from Mexico, it's just not getting good. I mean, I prefer San Diego style myself. Like, I think that's the most authentic, delicious, Mexican, just like anything in that region. I think is the best, but yeah. I
have a buddy of mine from Mexico, and he doesn't consider the burritos we have in the Bay Area to be really burritos.
They're still better. They're better than Portland, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like Chinese food in that, I like real Chinese food, but I'm okay with a little Panda Express every now and then. Like, it's a different
for sure, it's a different thing. I mean, it's not the same thing, but sometimes it's what you want. I mean, sometimes I want Taco Bell. I know it's not real Mexican, but sometimes I want it.
There you go. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not going to judge. We're not going to judge you for it.
Crunchwrap Supreme, guys. It's good.
So Heidi, last time you were on, I think it was probably maybe one of the panel discussions, the Yang Gang for Congress panels. Was that the last time?
I think so. With Jermaine and was it David and Jonathan?
Yeah, that was a good crew.
Yeah, that was really good combo. And I remember you left. Remember you
That's right.
we lost
and then you picked it up back. Without missing a beat. I loved it. And now you've got
over. Yeah,
you've got your own show. So maybe we should start with that. Tell me about what you're working on in terms of content creation.
Yeah, absolutely. The main thing that I've been doing is actually with The Hill of Roses with John Munitz. We have a show called Full Bloom that we do Tuesdays and Thursdays. So every Tuesday and Thursday, we chat with primarily congressional candidates, but or contributors to the network that have written articles on different topics. But we also got Andrew Yang and Marianne Williamson.
Nicely done.
And just like you, we had Vermin Supreme. I think back to back, you had him on first, and then we had him right after. He was super fun. So it's been really fun. I mean, we have some other cool things coming up in the works, but we do it every Tuesday and Thursday on the Hill of Roses on YouTube at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. So if you do want to check out the show. It's pretty cool. And John and I have a little different of a style. So you will get to see me ask some, different questions. I think it's pretty interesting. We have a good time.
How has Jenna been holding up with you spending so much time on content creation? I know my wife, as an example, sometimes gives me the evil eye when I'm like, I got to run. I got to do a show.
Yeah. Jenna does not like it. It's tough. I have to be careful with balancing, my relationship, as you understand, with my hobby. which, I consider this right now a hobby. I would love for it to be my actual career. And I'm working on that behind the scenes to try to find a way to make my career something more political in politics, organizing or activism. But for right now, I work in insurance. I sell insurance during the day. And then the rest of the time I try to get my politics in and work on my hobby and do my interests. And yeah, it's a bit much. I mean, there's definitely, times where I'm out of bandwidth. I'm kind of feeling that way right now and just kind of have to step back and start saying no to things and just kind of realize, my balance is, so important in my health and my relationship. Do have to come first. So it's tough. I mean, it's tough to balance all that. I don't get how people do it when they're like actually running for president and like or being president or like being like this huge, busy, massive political public figure and balancing things. I mean, I totally get why, people have like a higher divorce rate when they're celebrities and things like that. I mean, it's like not shocking to me anymore at all. Cause it's like, once you get like even 1% of that, you're like, this is a lot.
It can consume you, right?
It does. And it's not always healthy. So I would say people do have to take a step back. I mean, that's something that we briefly chatted with, Andrew about when he was on our show. What should we do if we're getting sucked into like stupid Twitter drama? And he's just like, take a step back. You gotta take a step away from it, take a break. And I fully agree with that. We have to be very aware of the effects that things can have on us. Most of this technology is still so new, like social media. We don't really know the long-term effects on our psyche. And the things that we do know are not so good. Like we already know that it's affecting us negatively and making us sad or angry. There's statistics on that. So be aware, be cognizant, even if you're just consuming the content and not creating it, it can still, take that effect on you.
Yeah, you and I are in some Twitter sort of messaging groups, and it is amazing how active those rooms are. And I'm like, and this was when I was in Zurich, and I was like, how are these people still going back and forth? It must be so late at night, in the US. And it's one of those things like no one's going to tell you, hey, it's time to kind of like pause. I mean, I think some of the tech products have these features, but it's generally takes as much time as you give it, really.
Yeah, it's so addictive too. I mean, I have some of those apps, like one that I used to use was Freedom, I think, and it would just block whatever sites I wanted it to, off all browsers. Like it would block it off my phone and any web browser, which is pretty cool. But you always have the ability to turn it off. I mean, with like, that you try to, there's different steps to where it can make it to where there's so many different levels for you to turn it off. Like you have to enter a password again and then do.
Are you sure?
And you still will get around it if you really want to get in, so it's, it's definitely, it can be addictive for sure.
So what, now that you've had a little bit of time, and I know we're going to have a panel discussion on this channel with a number of Yang Gang for Congress candidates, but while you're here, just maybe as a starting point, when you reflect on the campaign, like, would you do it all over again? What would you do differently? Like, what's your take, having had some time to kind of reflect?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, somebody had asked me that the other day on Melanated Council of Yang. I was talking with them and they were like, what would you do if you knew what you know now? And I'm like, man, I don't know if I would have ran, because it's, I didn't know that we were going to be in the middle of a pandemic when I decided to. I mean, coronavirus, there were talks about it, but I kind of thought maybe it'll just be more small, like a H1N1 kind of, not really become this massive thing. I didn't know. So I don't know if I would have chosen to, actually give it a go and go through all the things that I went through if I would have known that we couldn't door knock and we couldn't raise money quite as easily because there's an economic crisis, like a major one. But then again, maybe that's not a good thing to have that knowledge, because then I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have, learned all the things that I learned, connected with all the people I did. Hopefully inspired other people to do the same, that those things wouldn't have happened if I would have had more knowledge. So sometimes it is nice to be ignorant. But I mean, as far as what I would have done, like campaigning wise, it's tough to say. I mean, I'm still a novice. This was my first campaign. It was in the middle of a pandemic and everything. I mean, I suppose I could have been, better at raising money. That's always great. I could have done more things there and been more creative. Again, it was tough. I could have been better at organized. I could have been better at getting volunteers together and motivated and come up with creative ways. But all of these things are tough when you're actually doing it for the very first time and you don't have that political knowledge. But if I did it again, certainly I have different ways I could be more creative about raising money now. I bring on some different kind of people to focus on fundraising and also, more of the digital aspects. I'd bring on more people there, and I would bring on somebody to just help me keep myself organized and from getting burnt out. So with more resources, more time, more help, I certainly would do things a little bit different the next time around.
What would you do that worked well? What would you do again?
Well, I think that what worked well for me was, this time around was Facebook ads. So I'd probably double down on things like Facebook and Instagram ads and put more of my money there and less into other things that didn't turn out quite as well. I mean, I still ran a very lean campaign, but there were certain things that I spent too much on. Like we got NGP van, which turned out to be just way too expensive for me, and I was frustrated with it. So I would have loved to put that money instead of into NGP van, which was difficult. It was difficult to set up. We had to hire somebody else to help us get it set up right, and then I had to have people working on it, and it's clunky. So there were things that I didn't really need. We could have been fine using MailChimp, which is originally what I was going to do. Just try to keep things lean on certain aspects and put more into what now I know worked, at least during this cycle, which was Facebook and Instagram ads. Primarily, that's where people heard about me. Mostly Twitter worked great for small donations and fundraising, but I don't think I really won any votes from Twitter or anything. That was all from my Facebook ads and also the signs. If I would have had more money to get more signs out, I know a lot of people voted for me based on the yard signs. We had a team that go out one day and put them up all at once, all over. But I wish I would have had 10 times the amount. I didn't have very many. I can't remember how many exactly, but I wish I would have had a lot more because when I tracked where I got the most votes, it was really weird. But somebody put all these signs in this one area that leads into a part of my district because we had little pins on where the signs were. And then when I looked at the county that I won by the most margin, not won, but got the most votes out of my votes, it was in this county. It was in a northern Clatsop County. Right here where people would have seen my signs while they were driving home. So I think, that's just a total guess, but I think possibly the yard signs are actually more effective than you think because name recognition is huge. So I might have put out just a ton of those, thousands, if I would have had the manpower and the money because they are expensive. They're pricey to print those things. So yeah, that's probably what I would have focused on is just doubling down on the digital ads that were working and also signage just to get my name recognition up.
How much did you spend on the signs that you did put out?
I think it was, trying to think, $1,000.
1,000? Yeah.
So that's what I had.
So you think if you had dropped 10 large on it, it would have made a big difference?
Yeah, I don't know if I would have won, but I sure would have made a difference. It definitely would have gotten me more votes because no one else had any signs up, not the incumbent, not anybody else running against me. Mine were the only signs. So if, people just had no clue about the race and just were seeing my signs out, I know I got some votes from that. I don't know how many, but it only makes sense because that's how people's psychology works. And that's why yard signs do work because it's about knowing that person's name and recognizing it. And
aside from NGP van, if you could take back an expense that you incurred, what would it be? Were there some ad programs that didn't really pan out for you, or were there other sources of expenditure that you're in hindsight, that really didn't give me the bang for the buck?
Maybe just, it sounds bad, but maybe staff, if I could have had, like somebody work volunteer completely if I had that ability, but I did have to hire a couple people, and that's normally very expensive. So like, it sounds bad, but I might have had to, I don't know, been different about who I paid and who I paid what to do what. So sometimes it's just like, yeah, I mean, I paid for some things that were great and important, but I'm not really good at managing people, and having staff is a little tough for me. So I possibly could have gotten away with hiring some people part-time, or just as a quick contract worker, or just bringing on somebody else entirely that was willing to do it 100% volunteer. There were things like that. So yeah, unfortunately, staffing is very expensive. And when you have a campaign, it's like a little business.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing, is payroll. When you have a business, it's like, that's the main expense. So I get it. I kind of learned crash course on having my own business, and why companies are always worried about making payroll, because that was sometimes I was like, I need more donations so I can literally just pay my staff.
Yeah.
So that's rough, and it sounds bad. I mean, I would have loved to have more money, so that wouldn't be a concern. But when you're so tight budgeted and grassroots, if you can find people that are willing to volunteer, even if you have to have more people, so that the load is less, maybe somebody can't work volunteer full time. Maybe that's not logical, but maybe you can get a group of 5 people that could cover all that area and delegate it really well. So I would say get as many volunteer people as you can, and try to manage that, or have somebody manage them, so that you don't have to hire as many people if you're just so grassroots and so shoestring.
Yeah. At the end of the day, how much did you roughly spend on the campaign, and how much do you think you'll need to spend if you were to do it again and make a real credible?
Yeah. I spent pretty much everything, which was about $25K. I mean, it's not a ton of money, but it was, decent amount. I didn't pay myself anything except for a reimbursement at the very end. I reimbursed myself for some costs, like $400, but everything else went to paying people that I had as staff, paying people for contracts, paying for the software we needed, paying for voter data, paying for, just all the tools that we needed, paying for texts. Those are very expensive. They're very effective, but expensive, and paying for phone banking, which is a little less expensive, paying for the signs. So, I mean, every single thing I spent. The next time I run, I would say, I mean, I'd like to have 10 times as much. I mean, if I had, because a lot of things I look at, I'm like, man, 10 times, like literally 10 times would have made a difference there, and 10 times. So I can see why raising money is so important to these politicians, and why they're willing to, shake that money tree in the wine cave or whatever they got to do, because if you have those funds, it makes a big difference. So yeah, 2.5 million plus more time would have been awesome. I mean, I don't know if I would have won, but I certainly would have been really close if I had more money and more time combined. So yeah, I would say get started sooner, raise more money from the jump, try to raise 10 times as much as you think you're going to need. Because even if you fall short, like, you still have more money than you thought. I mean, I took some bad advice. I listened to some people who said to set my goals a little lower than I should have. And that I wouldn't do that again. I'd set them higher. Even if I don't hit it, I would just set them on what I know I actually need.
Yeah. I guess the conventional wisdom is you don't want to miss a goal and look like, the campaign struggling.
Yeah, but
then you only end up with 25K.
Yeah, that's the thing. If that's like your goal, if you reduce your goal, and that's like, I mean, who cares? Like, I wouldn't care about looking bad, because I'm so new and such a novice, and like anything I do is actually impressive. Even if I don't make my goal, I'm like, I mean, I wouldn't care. I mean, people would forget that anyway. It's not a presidential campaign, so it's not like I would get a ton of press. I mean, I would have been thrilled to have any one piece of press. So I wasn't too worried about looking bad, I guess. I would have been grateful to look bad, I guess, because that would have been a lot more eyeballs on me. I mean, I would just say set your goals higher than you think, and don't listen to people that say it's not possible. I mean, unless it's something totally insane, but if it's somewhat reasonable, then go for it and try to raise that money and just get creative. And the thing is, when you set that goal big enough, you're going to want to hit it, and you'll start getting super creative, and you'll start thinking of new ways, and you'll start making more phone calls or figuring out different things that you can do. So it's worth it to set, sometimes crazy goals.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we started this live stream a minute or two later than expected. Part of the reason is, like, this morning I've been working on my other project, the Of the People project.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Kickstarter for Congress. And the idea is like, hey, maybe someone can kind of dip their toe in the water and say, look, if I can get non-binding pledges for 25K or 100K, then yeah, I'll take a leave from my job and do this full time. But I don't want to do a big thing and then not have enough kind of support there, or I just want to know, like, there's enough there to make a run at it. So who knows? Maybe next time you run, if we build this thing, we just started development a few weeks ago. So, but fingers crossed, we'll put something out there. Maybe in the next few months.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. It is nice to be able to know you have support before you fully jump in. And being able to quit your job would be great. I mean, found out, so many grassroots candidates just can't do that and work and campaign as well. And that's so much harder. I mean, the people that are able to even take off some time from work can get a lot more done, because you need to be out there talking to people. You do need to be making some fundraising calls. It's, it sucks. No one wants to do it, but you got to have that time available. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if we take that startup analogy, very few part-time startup founders build successful companies.
Got to go all in.
Right? Like, this is a war. Like, you're really, every minute counts. So I can't imagine working like a full 40, 50, whatever hours a week. And then, at night and on weekends running full time for Congress. Like, I can imagine people doing it, but I could also imagine it being a serious competitive disadvantage, because, the incumbents, I mean, that's probably going to be their full-time job when they're campaigning. They can spend all the time and they have a lot of resources, or wealthy candidates.
Yeah. I mean, in the case of the incumbent in my district, she didn't really do anything, and she she was fine. She was fine. She was like, I'm good. I'm so solid. She basically already has the data, I'm sure, on her approval rating and, the people that vote for her and the demographics, and, probably did her own internal kind of polling maybe at some point. It was just like, I'm good. Like, I'm not going to worry that much. And I'm sure she ran some TV ads or something. I mean, I saw, according to the FEC, she was spending a lot of money, but I could still never figure out what she was spending it on, because I didn't see anything. So it's weird. I had a lot of people tell me that. They're like, yeah, I didn't really hear much from her, just a lot of emails and touches, but how expensive are those? I mean, I don't know, but she was spending money somewhere.
Did you ever get any input from the Democratic Party about sort of the numbers and sort of the opportunity to challenge, or were they pretty much hands off, didn't talk to any candidates?
No, never heard anything from them. I mean, the day after the election, the Oregon Democrats, I forget what exact group it was, but I read an article from basically the Democratic Committee of Oregon saying, all right, like, this is great. We're gonna do everything we can to protect our incumbents come November, and here are their names. And I didn't hear anything from them, but they definitely are protective over incumbents. And they do make that clear somewhat subtly, and they don't give off they don't tell their actual strategies publicly, but they do things. And I never heard from anybody. Like, I see, like, I don't know, I see documentaries or things on TV with like candidates and they lose, and then their challenger calls them, that kind of thing. Never heard anything. Like, didn't hear anything from Bonamici, never tried to reach out at all or talk to me at all. The only time me, myself, and Amanda and Ricky ever spoke to her, saw her, or even had a semblance of a debate was the Willamette Weekly, endorsement interview. And that's the only time she was there. And we kind of had a little back and forth with her, and I did push her and challenge her on a few things. And I'm pretty proud that she came out for the $2,000 a month cash relief, emergency UBI after that. But I mean, yeah, I never heard from the Democratic committee or party, never heard from her. Yeah, basically you're just shunned as like not a true Democrat, something I heard a lot, or how dare you? Or, you know, how could you do this when you're challenging an incumbent anywhere? So it's, you know, if you don't win, basically you're just considered like vermin, like not vermin supreme, but actual vermin, just like.
Yeah, well, that's, I guess that the lesson learned for those out there is like, if you're in a district and you're thinking of running, and the party you're going to run in has an incumbent, unless that person's retiring, you're not going to get any help, and you're probably going to get some passive aggressive, lack of help.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and you might not even know what it is. You might just feel blocked, or weird things could happen. Like Jen Perlman, who, Debbie Wasserman Schultz bought her like domain names, and they point to her website, which is crazy. So things like that they might do. So be aware that you will get some attacks, and that's why, groups like Brand New Congress and Justice Democrats have, kind of existed to get people like AOC, and then possibly Paula Jean. I believe now Paula Jean won this time around. Her primary. She was in the same documentary that AOC was in with the Brand New Congress, crew. So, if you have that support and that team behind you, then that's vital, because you need that. You're going up against the machine. And if you don't have a grassroots organization like going at it, then that's going to be really hard. And there's no way someone like AOC would have won without that kind of support, because it's absolutely necessary. You don't know what you're doing, and you're up against a lot of money and power. Yeah.
It's well, we'll get into the current party, and we got to talk, of course, about the presidential. We got a message from Jeremy, who wants you to move to Austin and run for office for there. Are you committed to Portland?
I'm open, but isn't Donna and Mom in Austin? Or I don't know how many districts are in Austin, but
Donna's in Texas for sure. I don't know if
she was in Austin. Donna.
Maybe, but maybe they have more than maybe the districts. They might have multiple
districts. Yeah, I'm not aware. Obviously, that's a little more deep than I would know about the Texas congressional districts. But
it is a big state.
Yeah, but I'd be open to it. I've thought about moving to Austin a lot of times. I mean, for many reasons. But yeah, I'd definitely be open to running somewhere where people wanted me to, and there was a groundswell of support, and there was a strategic reason. It seemed like I could win. That would be cool. I mean, I'd definitely be open to that. I mean, it doesn't always have to be, that certain district, although I do care about my district. The fact is that this is a federal position, and you do have to explain that to people, that you're making federal law. And essentially, I'd be fighting for the same things, regardless of what district I was in, because we all need these things. We all need a universal basic income, and we all need universal health care, and we all need democracy reform, so things can be more fair. So the things that I care about, I'd fight for any district I was in, because I'd be fighting for the whole country.
Yeah, the maybe one strategy could be, like, you look at a map of all the districts, you look for a Republican incumbent that's weak, and where there isn't a strong Democratic challenger announced yet, that also has strong natural kind of yang UBI kind of openness, and you move there.
Could be. That'd be a pretty crazy district to find, though, because why would they be like Republican? I don't know. Like, if there's a place like that, that would be sweet. That'd be a sweet spot for sure. But if
like a red,
they already have a Republican.
Blue.
Yeah. What?
A district where it's historically red, but it's kind of every year has gotten more blue, and it's about to tip over.
Purple, maybe. Yeah. I could see that. Maybe like Arizona, like I forget what her name is, but she's running in the District 1 in Arizona, and that's kind of a similar thing, because Arizona has been getting more blue in certain parts. So there are some, there's definitely some districts, I'm sure, that might fit. So interesting to think of, interesting strategy. It's tough. I mean, it's really tough to challenge a strong incumbent. Not impossible, but unbelievable. And that's like when it happens, that's why like people were so shocked and why AOC became the star that she is immediately, because that's just like unheard of to do something like that in most cases. So yeah, definitely
a lot to think about on the congressional side, but I know there's also a presidential election coming up. And, it's interesting how the Yang Gang has evolved over just like the last 6 months. I mean, we were all lockstep. Like, I felt like everybody agreed on 99% of things. And then as soon as the campaign suspended, you saw like the different kind of subunits of the Yang Gang. And that's when I learned that you and I have different perspectives, which is cool and interesting. But like, what's your take on the presidential race? Like, where's your head at?
Yeah, it's been tough for me because, I mean, I supported Andrew Yang for a reason. I mean, I supported him because he's an outsider, because of universal basic income, because he's data-driven, because he was willing to challenge the establishment, because I thought he was the best person to take on Trump, for so many different reasons. But I mean, mostly because I see Trump as just being a symptom of a larger, issue going on. And I wanted to fix those actual problems. And I wanted a problem solver type of person. And he appeared. I mean, I was actually politically disengaged. I was sick of it, completely over it because I've played this game my entire life. I've been involved in politics since I was a teen, at least on an interest level. I worked with Democrats for several years in Sacramento. I come from a family of Democrats. I voted blue my whole life. And I've been disheartened by the party. I feel like they've become a corporate party and they've voted for things that I don't agree with so many times. The Iraq War is one example. It just immediately comes to mind where I was against that. And, my thoughts and feelings have later become, proven to be true, that there weren't weapons of mass destruction, all these things. So I don't feel represented very well by the Democratic Party. I did give it one more go in 2016. I did think that Hillary was going to beat Trump. So I did have some, excitement around that campaign. I thought that's how it was going to go down, like a lot of people did. I did actually see a lot of excitement for Hillary when I was living in Arizona. There were actually some pretty big rallies and a lot of people came out and there were a lot of people excited. So there was some energy there and I was kind of involved and I was a little bit emotionally invested. And then, the result happened. I was pretty shocked. I went into depression. I was just like, I don't understand what's happening with my country. And I'm sick of these Democrats. Like, why did they lose this race? That should have been a winnable freaking race. Like, what is going on? Like, how do you lose? How the heck do you lose? And like, win the popular vote by such a huge margin, but not campaign in the right places that you need to campaign and let yourself lose to somebody like Donald Trump and let this happen because you have milquetoast weak sauce, like campaigning and policies. So I was just very disappointed. I was disappointed in the Democrats. Obviously, I don't like Trump. But, now where we are now, it's just, Biden was definitely not one of my first choices. I just have to admit. Do I think he's better than Trump? Yes, slightly I do. My problem comes down to trust, mostly. I don't have a whole lot of trust for the Democratic establishment and Biden being a part of that. So that is just something that I've been struggling with. And even though, I do want Trump out as much as anybody, fact is, Oregon's going to go to Biden. My vote is something I still have ownership over. I had a great conversation with, a Native American man named Mark Charles, who's running as an independent. I really liked what he had to say. He does support UBI. He is at least open to the idea and was supportive of the concept. And I liked a lot of the things that he was talking about and I trust him. And I thought, I don't know. I'm definitely open to not voting for Biden, and I'm not going to actively support Biden because I fully disagree with his policy decisions in the past and the things that he's done. There's a lot of policy issues that I disagree with and a lot of votes that he's made that I don't agree with. And I just don't trust him. So even if I do see something that seems kind of okay that he comes out with, I just don't trust him. And I don't think that he's prepared for this moment in history. I just don't think that he's the leader that we need right now. Do I think he's better than Trump? Am I concerned about Trump? Absolutely. But the fact of the matter comes down to it is that I'm kind of tired of playing the game that these Democrats have been pushing. And I didn't like how they treated Andrew Yang, didn't like how they treated Tulsi Gabbard, didn't like how they treated Marianne Williamson, and none of those people are even candidates to be his VP, which is just crazy to me, not even like on a short list or a thought. And I am not happy about that. I don't like the direction they're going in, and I just can't give my full support right now to the top of the ticket. I'm happy to support down ballot candidates, and I'm happy to focus more on that. But the top of the ticket, I don't have good feelings about it, and I'm kind of tired of playing the game. So sort of where I stand right now, I'm probably going to vote third party, probably Mark Charles. I'm still deciding. I could change my mind. I mean, if Biden does something great, if he decides to finally make a statement on something like UBI or something that's exciting to me by the time the election rolls around, then I could totally change my mind. I'm open to it. I just don't want us to roll over because he's the nominee. I think we should put more pressure on him for things like UBI. I do see that the Yang gang kind of just was like, well, that's it. We got to get Trump out, a certain sector at least. And that's just part of what I want to see more pressure put on the nominee before we just hand over our support and our vote. And that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, you've mentioned trust about Biden a few times.
Yeah.
Where is the mistrust coming from? Is it you don't trust his capabilities, or you don't trust that he's being honest, or both?
There's a lot. There's okay. First of all, he had to drop out of the race before because he is a plagiarizer. That's pretty distrustful. That's one example. He was a sponsor of the 1994 crime bill, which led to a lot of the issues that we have now. He voted for the Iraq War, which kind of distrustful to me because the evidence was shaky. I was a very young person, and I could see that there weren't weapons of mass destruction, and it was complete garbage. So kind of distrustworthy there. There's a smaller policy that I feel very passionate about that he was a sponsor of. That was his bill called the RAVE Act, which was, I think, reducing America's something, I don't know, the vulnerability to ecstasy, which was essentially him outlawing raves. And I was very much into the underground music culture in the Bay Area at that time. And there were some things that became very unsafe after that legislation passed. Initially, the legislation failed, and then they snuck it into the Amber Alert bill and passed it, the same language, but just worked into the Amber Alert bill so that everybody had to vote yes. Very shady, I thought. And passed, and then raves became illegal, which forced them to either become these big, huge festivals that you see now and kill underground music, just kill that creativity because they're concerned about ecstasy, which is just crazy because there were nonprofit groups that got destroyed because they became illegal entities after that passed. And those nonprofit groups were keeping people safe at these parties, and they became illegal and they had to shut down. And those were the groups that were actually making sure that people didn't take bad pills or, they got water and they were taken care of. So that's just the thing that I'm passionate about, because that was a community that, I was involved in because I love electronic music and underground music and the art that people would create. And all of those things got moved to, Burning Man or EDC or different places after that. And the underground part of it died. And I'm very supportive of underground art and creativity. So personal thing, but I did not like that. I felt like that's not trustworthy. And yeah, there's just other things as well. I mean, him saying to his donors that things will not fundamentally change. Him saying he would veto Medicare for all if it came to his desk. I mean, why? Like, it made it all the way to your desk, even if that's not your policy. Like, just say you'd freaking vote for it. I don't know. There's just so many things, and there's his cognitive abilities and his decline. He has so many gaffes, and I'm very concerned about him cognitively. There is also the Tara Reid thing. I mean, whether you believe her or not, that still is some doubt that is cast on somebody, to me, as a woman who is a sexual assault survivor. I mean, I don't know what happened, but that casts some doubt as well. It just does. And there's just so many things. He's so problematic to me that I just can't fully go hard on Biden. Like, I'm going to be critical of him. I just have to be, because I have to be critical of anybody who's in that position that I have a criticism of that I feel like is valid. And I'm just not going to go hard for him unless something changes. If he decides to come out and say, you know what, the people want Medicare for all and they want UBI and we're in an economic crisis, I'm going to change some of my views and be public about it. It's just concerning. And I feel like he's being controlled by people that do have more cognitive ability than he does right now. And then I'm concerned about, is he really going to be calling the shots, and who is? We don't even know, like, who is actually going to be making the decisions for him if he's not cognitively able to, or if he's sick and we don't know about it. There's so many questions. I have so much doubt about this man at this very time and this moment.
And you have more doubt about a Biden presidency than a second term for Trump?
It's not that. It's just that it's tough. I mean, there's certain things that I mean, unfortunately, I do kind of side with Trump on. There's a lot of things that I think Trump has done wrong. But Trump is actually, I'm somebody that's very left on foreign policy and interventionism. And Trump, I feel like, is less interventionist and more isolationist than a typical Democrat is. They're a bit more hawkish. And Trump is actually slightly better on that. So I am a bit concerned if we will get into a new conflict under a Biden administration. That's one place I'm concerned. I am very concerned about Trump as well. But I don't really like either of them. Like, I think they're both not what we need for this moment. I would have loved to see Andrew Yang. And so then I can't just be like, I think Biden is right for this moment. Do I think he's better? I've already admitted slightly I do. But being that I'm not in a swing state, I feel like I have, a little more ownership over my vote. And I certainly have ownership over my support and who I'm willing to outwardly go and support. And I just can't play the game anymore of the Democrats. Like, I outwardly did support Hillary Clinton. I got a lot of crap from it, from people that hated her. I outwardly did, because I said, you don't understand. We have to stop Trump. Like, this is going to be really bad. This is going to be dangerous. Mm-hmm. And it didn't matter, because I was not in a state that freaking mattered. Like, and no one cared. And he won on areas that I have absolutely no influence over. And if he wins again, he'll win in areas that I unfortunately don't have any influence over. He's going to win in certain districts and sections of the country that, that's what they feel that they want, that they, felt like they wanted it last time. And if they feel like they want that again, that's our electoral college setup. And I can't do a whole lot about that with my voice. And I'm going to stay true to my values. And if I don't think Biden is the right person for this moment, I'm not going to just support him just because I think Trump is worse. That's my prerogative.
What do you say to the argument that even if you're not in the swing state, neither of us are in one at the moment, that the popular vote and the margin of victory will matter, especially as an example, if it's super, super close, like 51-49 or something crazy like that, you could risk Trump sort of challenging some small states' mail-in ballots, or doing basically what George W. did to Gore in Florida. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like there's anything about like a mandate for change that the popular vote gives us?
Not really. I mean, I personally don't. I think Biden's going to win the popular vote by a huge margin. I mean, Hillary won it by a fairly large margin. I think Biden's going to win it by a larger margin. Mm-hmm. Biden's going to pull even more of the voters, that, more like a Obama level. But the issue is we're in a different time now as far as the electoral. Trump certainly is going to challenge things. He's already started to. He's already, done some things with the post office that are pretty shady. So if he's going to do that, I feel like he's already doing it. And that is concerning to me. And if it becomes actual clear and like a problem and it's blatant that he's like suppressing the vote, then yeah, maybe I'll change my tune and I'll outwardly start supporting Biden. You know, if it comes down to like Trump's actually gonna, you know, delay democracy or like actually do that type of thing, then I might change my tune. Right now, I am still a little skeptical of the fact of whether he's gonna do that. I think he's just kind of like tooting his own horn to his base on certain things. But I'm looking at the post office carefully. I mean, if that's something that he's really trying to do and suppress mail-in votes, then I may change my tune. I'm still open to looking at the facts as they present themselves. At this very moment, still very concerned, though, about both of them, just slightly less concerned about Biden than Trump.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this was just Trump being Trump on Twitter. He was sort of brainstorming about maybe we should just delay the election until we figure out what the hell is going on. It's like, what? How can you be president of the United States, the greatest democracy in the history of the world, and say we're going to postpone, even contemplate that at his office? Seems,
I know, it's horrible. Yeah, it's definitely unheard of and horrible. And you know, I mean, the thing is that you know, with Trump, there's so many Republicans that hate Trump. I mean, because of the things that he's doing and just his attitude and how he's like just not a good leader, like just the way that he acts and his leadership abilities and his erraticness and the way he signals to white nationalists and these like, you know, Q people that are like obsessed with conspiracies and things like that. Concerning for sure. And my dad changed from a Republican to a Democrat to vote for Andrew Yang. I convinced him to vote for Andrew Yang, but he's willing to vote for anybody that's not Trump. So he'll vote Biden. I feel like a lot of people will. And I totally get it. I mean, it's highly concerning. I can't believe that we have, you know, a president that's this erratic. And as far as certain things, there are some areas where, you know, I may actually agree with him. I mean, I don't think that policy-wise, he's all bad. Like I've said before, some of his foreign policies I think they're kind of decent, but just him as a person, like his character and his leadership and the scary things that he's doing as far as, you know, rolling back civil liberties during the protests and all these different things and bringing in the feds to my town, to Portland, Oregon. I mean, I'm against all of that, and I think it's all horrible. So it's concerning, the state that we're in of the country. I am concerned. I'm concerned about it either way. The problem is, even if Biden wins, so many of these problems don't go away. And as Yang Gang, we know this. We talked about this the whole campaign, like that Trump is the symptom. And no matter who wins, like the problems aren't necessarily going to go away. They're so deep. And we need to solve the root of the problem that created this, because even if we get Trump out, the next person that comes around could be worse than Trump. Okay, they could be much worse if we don't solve the roots of this and actually get to the heart of things. So that's where my focus is. Like, I want to focus on certain policies where we could start to change this. Like, I do want to do a lot of democracy reform at the state and local level and focus on pushing state legislatures on things like, you know, voting reform, things like either ranked choice or approval or whatever makes sense for that state. And get them to move more in that direction so that we can have actual democracy reform from the ground up. Because regardless of who the president is, if there's not like a grassroots foundation and actual movement and activism pushing certain policies, things just don't happen. If we're complacent, things just don't happen. We had, you know, Obama came in and a lot of people got complacent on the left with Obama. And just kind of chilled. And they're like, it's cool. Like, we got Obama, like it's all good. And activism wasn't quite as strong as it is right now. And there is something to be said for making sure that we focus on the grassroots and not just the top. Presidents can only do so much without actual groundswell of support or, you know, dissent rather.
What do you think is going on in Portland from an outsider's perspective? If you read sort of Fox News or you follow the president on Twitter, it sounds like the whole city's like just ashes right now. And then if you look at other sources, then it's kind of like, oh, these are you know, patriotic Americans challenging, you know, demanding law enforcement reform. Like, what's really going on down there?
I mean, a little bit of both might be true. I mean, it was kind of funny though. I like retweeted Donald Trump when he posted like, if we didn't go in, Portland wouldn't exist. And I thought it was really funny. So I like had done a retweet and I was just like, you know, Portland's still going to exist. We're really strong. The fact is it's a very small area of Portland where this is going on. You know, you can't avoid that. Most people are living their lives great. And either way, we're going to make it. And I got ratioed so hard by MAGA folks. It was like 5 minutes and I had like 1,000 like comments. I just like deleted it. I was like, I do not want these people like knowing who I am. It was scary, but yeah, it's very polarizing. It's really weird because it's kind of both. I mean, you know, I've been down to downtown. I used to live downtown. I moved into the suburbs to be closer to my job, which is now hilarious because we're all work from home. But anyway, so I've been down to the downtown area and I went down there when things first started. And yeah, I mean, probably 99% of people are very peaceful, protesting for the right reasons because they care about Black lives and they care about George Floyd. And they're great, you know, amazing, you know, activists and just people that are just inspired to get out there on the streets, which is what we should be doing. And then there's some bad actors who use it as an opportunity to just destroy things and like graffiti and things like that the grand majority aren't doing. But then, you know, you bring in feds and that escalated it. That's an escalation. It, you know, incites the small group and it incites other people that weren't in that group to join them because they feel like, hey, those people are being harmed by these federal agents and I don't like that. And now I'm going to be more radical. So it radicalizes people when you don't de-escalate appropriately. So concerning response, basically what's mostly going on is very peaceful. It does get a little crazy after hours, but it's instigated and escalated by the federal, you know, agents there.
When you hear the president and some of his administration talk about sending in federal, you know, resources into these Democrat-run cities, it almost feels like they purposely want to kind of stir it up.
I think so. I mean, because then you get this great footage.
Yeah.
You know, you get these crazy liberals. Look at this city. This is like Biden's America, even though it's like literally Trump is the president. You know, you get these like crazy ads. Like, yeah. But it really stirs up the mob. Like I learned that from my post that got ratioed so freaking hard by MAGA that they're stirred up. Like they're fired up about Portland. Most of these people don't even live in Portland or have any freaking clue what's going on, but they're fired up that Portland's going to be destroyed by these liberals or these anarchists or whatever they call them. They call them socialists, communists, everything under the book, which is crazy. Yeah, I mean, it would it would not be as bad if the federal agents weren't there, guaranteed. You know, I mean, I don't agree. I don't condone any sort of violence or graffiti or property destruction. I don't necessarily condemn it either, being, you know, because of how upset some people are. But it's not, you know, I don't condone or condemn it because it's just like, man, I get how you're this upset right now. And I get that you're frustrated. I get that you don't have a job. And I get that there's racial injustice. And I get that like things are really bad for you. So, but you have to know how to de-escalate. Like there's, you know, ways that you go out and you talk to people and you actually figure out what they want and work with them and, you know, calm the situation down. You do not like escalate and destroy it because then it goes even further in that direction. And then you end up with things that you wouldn't want, like the results that you don't want, such as Seattle essentially abolishing the police department. And a lot of conservatives are against that type of a policy. But that comes when you know, go above and beyond and push people to that limit. And then that's their only demand is just completely get rid of it. And then, you know, you have some evidence like, oh, look at Seattle, like that city is destroyed now. They abolished the police department. So yeah, it's very concerning how divisive this is and how, you know, each side can be made to look, you know, horrible and crazy when in reality, it's somewhere in the middle. It's actually a lot of just rational people that are upset about a serious issue of police brutality. And then it's, you know, police officers that are mostly good and mostly just doing their job. And the system is just has some issues that we need to fix and reform. So both sides are, you know, right in a way and wrong in another way.
You know, it's interesting in that the argument, I agree with what you're saying about the need to de-escalate. as well as acknowledge like the truly valid, concerns that a lot of these protesters have, and they're absolutely right in so many ways. I could see some of them saying, you know what, if we don't escalate, nothing's going to change. Like if we take a knee during the national anthem, we're called traitors and ignored. And this is the only time that like anybody's even paying attention. So just like, middle finger to the system, we'll just burn the whole damn thing down. It's the time for talk is over, blah, blah, blah.
I get that. Like I said, that's why I don't really condemn, people, but I don't condone it either, because if you look historically, violence just hasn't been necessary for major change. We've been able to do a lot of things with peaceful protests. That's truly what I believe. I believe that it's possible, and I believe that you need to make your demands very clear and succinct, because people in power, sometimes people in power don't know what the hell to do. I mean, like they're sitting in ivory towers and all these people down below are this is metaphorical, but they're all pissed and yelling and screaming things like a little chant. Maybe it's no justice, no peace, but they might not know what the hell that means. They don't know what the actual demand is. So I understand this is a grassroots movement. It's not organized, but a little organization, just a little bit of organization and a little bit of clear demands. And I think that you could do everything that you need to do peacefully while keeping everybody safe, because it's not safe to be out there getting beaten up, getting tear gassed every single night. Getting arrested and thrown in an unmarked van and all these things that are going on. That's just not safe for people, and in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
So none of this is actually like safe or good for humanity. So I do think there could be better strategies. Some people might disagree with me if they're a little more radical than myself, but I'm just more of a peaceful protest type of person who I think that there is a way to keep it completely peaceful and not destroy anything, and to still get what you want if you make it very clear what you want and you stick to that, and you get organized, you get a little bit more organized, and you make sure that, if there's some bad actors, that you kind of de-escalate them and chill them out and be like, yo, we get it. We get that you're upset. This is what we're doing about it. This is how it goes. Take a step back. Come and let's talk to you over here about what's going on and get it out, let it out with us. There's so many ways that you can do that. If you've been to a lot of protests and been an activist for a while, and I have, and we've done very significant things in organizations that I've been involved in that were generally very peaceful.
Yeah, it's funny. I grew up in northern New Jersey, very conservative area. And so I have a lot of MAGA friends now. I have a lot of friends who I grew up with.
What about your family? I thought your brother was MAGA brother.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just my mother, my brother. It's I'm surrounded by them.
Oh, wow.
And the funny thing is now they're all complaining to me about, well, how can you support Biden? He's such a Marxist. He's a BLM Marxist. I was like, are you serious? Now I'm getting it from you people.
Yeah.
It's like I'm talking to Heidi, who's saying that Biden's too much of a corporate Democrat, and now you guys are saying that he's some kind of like, Marxist Lenin. It's like, what is going on in the world?
Crazy. I honestly don't know. I mean, it's just that it's propaganda. I think that the right is really good branding, marketing, and propaganda. Okay. Really freaking good at it. Like they're so effective at it. And the left hasn't been as good at it. Like we've been kind of in an echo chamber, like in the left, we just kind of talk to each other and we get all riled up and we sometimes we do some really cool things. But lately, we haven't been expanding like the movement enough. Back in the 60s, the reason they got so much shit done during the civil rights movement is they expanded that shit. Like they were willing to like talk to everybody and bring so many people in and make it fun and make it exciting and make everybody excited about, getting involved in something, regardless if they were Republican, conservative, blah, that's like that's something that I think the corporations with the corporate media and the establishment has forced to happen. And divided us, because they know if we all get together and realize we all freaking want and think the same things and we're all basically fundamentally the same, then we'll actually get real change like we did during certain periods of time when we had revolutions in this country and they were effective. freaking everybody was involved. We didn't have this stuff with like people believing, false things about, Biden being a communist or people called me a socialist. People called me a socialist so many times when I was running. And then people that were actually socialists told me I was too conservative. Like wasn't far enough to the left. So I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Like you guys are all wrong. Like, everybody's just wrong. We need to go back to our roots and realize that it's about solving problems. It's about making real change, helping people. And we're all fundamentally like the same. And we have the same wants and the same needs deep down if we really sit and talk to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amen. Let's go hit some audience comments.
Yeah, let's do it.
So Soldier One, who's a channel member, thanks for your support, Soldier. He's bringing up a point about if Trump wins, there's going to be this new kind of alliance of authoritarian leaders. He does seem to get along better in some ways with Kim and Xi and Putin than folks in France or Merkel or
Sure.
the Canadians. Do you I know from a foreign policy point of view, I too favor less military intervention in other countries. So in some ways, I kind of do like that. I would argue Obama reduced our presence in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I think Trump has done that even more, and that's great. But I do see that Trump does not seem to have the kind of interest in democratic institutions and international cooperation. Do you think there's a risk of him doing more kind of on the foreign policy front in term 2 that would kind of take the country in a dangerous direction?
I don't know. It's a little speculative to me, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to be close to your enemies like Kim and Putin and all of that. That's kind of like, game theory, and that's kind of good in a way. You don't necessarily want to be like, F you Putin every single day and be pissing him off all the time. That's not like a good way to go either. So I think it's a bit more complex than what I can go into here, but I don't think there will be World War III if Trump gets a second term. I do think that there'll be some consequences domestically. I am concerned about things he's rolling back as far as social policies and his, judge appointments. I do see the concerns. I personally don't see that happening. I don't really believe that there will be a World War III with Trump. I don't think he wants that. I think Trump essentially is an America first type of conservative person and doesn't really want to see us involved in a World War III. I just don't think that that's one of his issues. He has many, but that's just not my concern personally.
Yeah, and then what's your take on his view on international kind of climate change agreements and things like that? Are you?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of him, refusing to work with, certain organizations and to, stay involved in reducing climate change globally. That's not something that I would agree with. I mean, definitely don't agree with every foreign policy thing he has, but I think his overall attitude is more isolationist than a typical corporate Democrat is. Or so that's my view on it. Just I think he's a little bit better in certain aspects, but of course I would love to see a president go in and actually work with other countries on climate change. That's actually one of my policies that I ran on, was to have the military actually go into other countries and help them with their environmental policy rather than going in on regime change wars and things like that. Actually go in and get them set up with solar and certain things and use our military for good around the world and create a new impression. So I'm definitely, not for rolling back the climate change, and I definitely believe in climate change, unlike Trump. So that's for sure not where I agree with him.
All right, Hectic Energy wants to know, where's the show Between Two Heidi? Heidi Day. We need to get on that. I do want to do something. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of time. Maybe we were talking about doing it once a month. Between two Heidis and just kind of bullshitting and talking. And then, whatever, it kind of became, well, maybe we'll have it with other people. And it's all still like a rumor and nothing's concrete or anything about any of these podcasts. I mean, I'm already doing Full Bloom. Again, that's Tuesdays and Thursdays. Me and John Munitz over on the Hill of Roses. Go subscribe there if you want to see me for now.
But we'll work on that. We'll work on getting me and Heidi doing something at least like once a month or something.
Yeah, I guess that ties back into the question of like how much time do we have to create all this content, right?
Not not a lot. It's crazy. It's like I gotta stay married, you guys. Like,
yeah,
I'm a married woman. Okay, Tom knows. Like I am.
know.
I'm in a marriage and I'm in my late 30s. Like I'm not as young as some of these people who think that like I could just do things all day for volunteer and just like, just like, yeah, I'm not in my 20s anymore. I probably would have a bit more time and energy, but mama's got bills to pay and mama's got to keep her wife happy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I hear you. My wife, sometimes I think she feels like she's like a Yang Gang widow. Like I'm always just doing Yang Gang stuff. And I was like,
oh, I'm so sick of this Yang stuff.
She's like, I thought he's suspended. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's what my wife said too. She's like, well, I thought when he's suspended, like, yeah, it's over. Like, you're not going to do this shit. And then you ran for office. And then you said, well, when I'm not ready for office, then like, yeah, it'll be less. And then you stop running for office and then you just start doing more shit. And I'm like, oh my God, yeah. Like I have a problem. Yeah,
it's, I mean, we care so much. I think we all agree that the country's not on the right track, and we all feel like, I think a lot of us feel like we can't just sit and watch this happen. And so like, I get the motivation. I also feel like it's going to be a long battle. So we have to kind of pace ourselves too, right?
It's going to be a very long battle. And, there's politics is not just every 4 yeyears. We should be working on things in the interim to make things easier during election years. We can always be working on policy. The state level is where a lot of these democracy reform decisions happen as far as how we vote, or, we need to be trying to have more open primaries, things that make down ballot candidates, have a better shot. Or, things totally not involved with electoral politics too. I mean, there's other ways that you can influence change, by talking to current representatives and getting them to, adopt policies. We could be writing some cool policies and being in there pushing them, or we could be engaging in sit-ins and demonstrations that are, effective. So there's so many things that we can get involved in. Of course, we have to pace ourselves, but we can't get too wrapped up in election year cycles. Only let's hope that we stay active regardless of what happens in November. Regardless, we still need to be working on these things, and we need to stay activated.
So Soldier has another question. When is the next Heidi Briones campaign?
I've thought about it. I mean, I think I've thought about it a lot, and I think the most likely thing next time would probably be a state level run. So more than likely like a state Senate type of run. Yeah, so that'd be the most likely thing to happen. And I would, if I announced that, it would be next year, and give myself a full, decent year to campaign. I think I have a pretty good shot in the district I'm currently in if we stay here. The guy, it's actually almost very similar to Jermaine's race. I found out the guy's very old, kind of on his way out, not super popular, and I don't need a ton of votes. I actually already have gotten the amount of votes that I would need to beat him in this exact area, because I don't need as many votes to do that. So I think even just having my name on the ballot, I'd probably get a bunch of votes there. And then if I actually campaign, this guy doesn't campaign, and he's not very well received from what I've heard. So I could have a shot there, and then I could do things like reforming, our voting system here. We don't have open primaries, huge problem. We should move to some better voting systems. I would love to fight for things like democracy dollars on the state level, possibly even some kind of dividend on the state level, or even at least pilots, at least try to run some UBI pilots or different things. So there's a lot of things that can be done on the state level that can make it easier for me in the future, or just for somebody else, maybe not me. And it's a different gig. It's a part-time gig. It's only every other year in Oregon. So it'd be a totally different thing. I'd have to do something else on top of it, but possibly I could still make some waves, make some change, and get some policies through that'll help us.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it all starts. I mean, I know we differ. I on Obama, I'm a big fan of his, but he started in state politics as well. So it happens to a lot of people, and maybe we all everybody should take a look at the Jermaine Johnson playbook. Find some old dude that's kind of like on the way out, and then come in with the fresh energy, fresh ideas.
Yeah,
in
it's
a respectful
exciting.
way, you know?
Yeah, Jermaine's super exciting dude. I mean, I pretty much knew he was going to win at one point. I mean, it was just like, you know, I mean, he was running a really effective campaign and had a lot of excitement and seemed like the perfect candidate for that district.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, definitely take a look at the local level. You know, a lot of decisions are made on the local level. You know, you'd be surprised what kind of influence you could have, and even just being even a city council member, just having that title gives you more pull than you would imagine for certain things. You know, you can reach out to certain people and call them and be like, hey, it's councilwoman, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You can actually have these conversations with the movers and the shakers and influence things, you know, on the backside of things that people aren't always aware of. You can have influence that way.
So when's that campaign? When is that election? The one
2022.
2022. All right. Well, that'll be right. That'll be here before we know
it. With the way things are going, yeah. I mean, we'll see. But I'm just trying to get through 2020 right now, man. Like everybody else, it's this like this year has been. Oh my goodness.
Sucks all around. Hopefully, between now and November 3rd, you will have. I hope that you will think about voting for Biden. I know you're not there, but I hope you will consider
it. I just want him to give me a little something, like at least like something, like come out.
I hear you.
Come out for emergency UBI, like be like just a tweet, like have one of your staffers just write a freaking tweet that says everybody should be getting UBI during this crisis. Like even if it just said during the crisis, that would be freaking awesome. The only thing he said about it, I think I found on his website that he said he'd leave it up to the states, which is, I mean, that's too weak for me. I mean, it's like, you know, like I need a little bit more, just a little bit more, or at least say like, you know what, if the people really want Medicare for all and it makes it to my desk, okay, I wouldn't veto it. Like it's not, you know, what I think is the right way to go, but I wouldn't shut it down if that's what everybody wants. You know, so
yeah, no, I feel you. I wouldn't be surprised if his advisors and he himself are trying to just play not to lose, because they feel like this thing is going in the right direction for them, and maybe they don't want to take any positions that are potentially alienating kind of, you know, swing voters.
I get that. I mean, the less Biden talks, it seems to be the better for him.
So. Right? I mean, all he has to do is be like, point to Trump's Twitter feed and be like.
That's literally the whole strategy right now is like, just say nothing, do nothing. Like you just chill and you're just like going to look way better. And that's all you got to do. And that's like, I mean, but I am a little concerned about the debates. I don't know how well if he's going to perform. I've heard there's a debate scheduled for September.
We'll have to get the popcorn out for that one.
That's going to be juicy. So I'm interested to see. And then there's always October surprise. You know, that's still always a thing. So what's going to happen then? Is that going to make any difference? There's a lot of factors, but I'm still open. To supporting Biden. I just want him to give me something.
No, I feel you. I hear you.
And I want I would love it if the Yang Gang did pressure him a little bit on UBI. I mean, you can still support him and still put some pressure on him. I think that there's this concern that if we say anything bad about Biden or we pressure him or we criticize him at all, then we're harming him so bad. And I think that that's not a good way to go. I think that you should, even if that's your candidate, you should still push him. You should still be like, yo, I love you, man. I'm voting for you. But like, what's up with you not even being for emergency UBI? Come on, like we could have had it by now if you as the leader, the essential, like, you know, leader of the Democratic Party currently had said, I'm for this and I want everybody to support it, you know, and this is something that's the right way to go, then I think it could have possibly happened if it had that kind of level of support. So us pressuring him, pushing him, being a little critical of him, that's not going to hurt him. That's just us using like a little bit of our influence to try to, you know, get him to support our policy, which our main policy in our group is UBI. So I don't see anything wrong with kind of pushing him on that.
Yeah, I hear you. And if I were to push the Biden campaign to do anything, I probably would say we need Yang in the cabinet. and I think he would be very influential. And I do feel like Biden is open to listening, and I think he seems to have a good chemistry with Andrew. Like just like watching them kind of after debate, kind of chit-chatting.
I mean, Biden has a good chemistry with a lot of people. I mean, he's a likable guy. I mean, he's a very likable dude. I don't know if he's going to be put on. I don't know if he would put Andrew on his cabinet. I'm a little less optimistic than others about that. I'm a little skeptical of whether he would.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's a sure thing. I guess I was making that point to say that's something we can push for.
Yeah, we should. Oh, we should absolutely push him for that. I mean, but maybe not. I mean, maybe that's not the best move for Andrew. So then again, I mean, it would depend on that cabinet position, I think, and it would depend on, what actual influence he would have, and it would depend on so many factors for him as well. So it might not actually be the best move for him anyway. So we have to consider that, there's a lot of factors that go into that, whether that would be the best move forward for everything. If he couldn't make any substantial change in that role, then maybe he'd be better off focusing on humanity forward and, running some UBI pilots and, pushing the message outside of it. I don't know. It depends on what he felt like he could actually do in that role.
A lot to watch, a lot of exciting history to be made. Heidi Briones, thank you again for coming back to the Nerd Zone.
Thanks so much, Tom. Always a pleasure. Loved our conversation. And even though we don't agree on everything overall, we have the same overall goals here. So
we all want the same thing. We want to take care of our friends, our family, and make the country, as prosperous as it can be. And so hopefully we'll get there and make it through 2020 in one piece. With that, we'll say goodbye, nerds.
Goodbye, nerds.
Peace.